Today I'm gonna tell the hunting story of Kouri and Eric Richins. Their tale of love, deception, and betrayal will leave you in disbelief. If you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe and don't forget to turn on notifications. Now, without further ado, let's go to the video. In early 2013, in the state of Utah, Kouri Darden, then 24 years old, met 30-year-old Eric Richins. At the time, Kouri worked as a cashier at a construction supply store, and Eric, who built luxury houses for a living, was a regular customer. According to close friends, it was love at first sight. It didn't take long till Eric asked her out on a date. The relationship flowed so quickly that 6 months later, on June 15, they got married in a ceremony that was held in the backyard of their recently built house in Kansas. Over the years, Eric had become more and more successful. He was seen as a great real estate entrepreneur, specializing in luxury and high-standard houses. Needless to say, with that, Eric accumulated a millionary patrimony that provided Kouri and their 3 children an excellent lifestyle. For many, Kouri had the perfect life. Big house, financial stability, a loving and passionate husband who was also an incredible father. However, deep down, for some reason she was not satisfied and wanted something more. When they met, Eric had already been in the luxury real estate business for some time, and he had already acquired a certain amount of equity. He then entered into a common agreement with Kouri, and the two signed up a prenup. Although it is not clear in the research sources, what it seems is that Kouri had led a very humble life before meeting Eric, and when she experienced the lifestyle of the rich and famous, it would have gone to her head, and she became addicted to it. In short, Kouri was no longer happy with the money she had at her disposal, which, despite being plenty for most people on the planet, for her, it wasn't. However, there was one issue. Eric didn't get where he got by spending money for nothing and squandering more than he could. No, he knew the value of money and where and when to spend it. That way, it was Eric who controlled the family's expenses. He didn't let them lack for anything. They had a very comfortable life, as I already mentioned. But even so, for Kouri, it wasn't enough. In mid-2016, Kouri would have started embezzling money from her own husband. They had a joint account, and she started making withdrawals without telling Eric. In addition, she also contracted large debts on credit cards. In the year 2017, she bought 4 life insurance policies in Eric's name without his knowledge, which added up to a value of almost $2 million. In 2020, Eric discovered that Kouri had withdrawn approximately $100,000 from their joint account. He also discovered that she had more than $30,000 in credit card debts, and that she had taken out a $250,000 loan in his name through a fraudulent power of attorney, where she forged his signature on the documents. Unfortunately, it is not known for sure how they would have resolved these issues, but what is known is that all the family and close friends of the couple didn't notice any strange behavior coming from them at the time, implying that they preferred not to expose it to anyone. However, Eric realized that there was something very wrong with his wife, and knew that after she had done these things, she was no longer to be trusted. Eric then, unbeknownst to Kouri, sought out a divorce attorney and an estate planning attorney, and with the help of the latter, he amended his will, leaving everything to his sister, Kouri Richins Benson. Eric also transferred his share of his company's partnership to his best friend and partner. It seemed that Eric already expected the worst and did all this to prevent his equity from falling into Kouri's hands if something happened to him. In January 2022, Kouri secretly entered Eric's life insurance account and changed it so that the beneficiary was only her. Almost immediately, Eric received an email regarding this change, and without Kouri realizing, he undid her changes. A few days after that, the family went on vacation to Greece. There, Kouri offered Eric a drink, and he unsuspectingly accepted. On the following days, Eric became very sick. Supposedly, this would have been Kouri's first attempt to take her husband's life. After this event, Eric commented to his sister that he suspected his wife was trying to poison him. Even with this suspicion and marriage problems, Eric didn't separate from Kouri for fear that his children would suffer something. Because until he proved to the authorities that Kouri was a risk for both him and the children, she would have time to do something bad. And it was due to this protective instinct that Eric became a victim of his own wife. On February 12, 2022, Kouri looked for a man selling prescription drugs and bought a strong sedative called hydrocodone, an opioid used to treat severe pain. In addition, she allegedly asked a woman named Carmen Marie Lauber, who was one of her housekeepers, to help her get some fentanyl pills, a painkiller that is so strong that is usually used in pre-operations. Carmen would have bought about 20 pills, and on February 14, Kouri put some on his dinner. Within minutes, Eric began to feel very sick. He felt a great shortness of breath and then passed out. A few hours later, Eric woke up, and upon realizing what had happened, he called his partner and best friend and told him that he had been poisoned again. About 2 weeks later, Kouri once again asked Carmen to buy more fentanyl pills, and on March 4th, 2022, when she and Eric were celebrating the purchase of their new mansion, valued at over $1 million, she would have served Eric a cocktail with the pills. After that, Eric went to lie down to sleep, and Kouri would have gone to bed in the couple's youngest son's room, who was 6 years old at the time, because he was having a lot of nightmares. Kouri ended up sleeping in her son's room and woke up around 3 a.m. She got up and went to lie in the room with Eric, and it was at that time that she saw him lying near the foot on the bed, already lifeless. Kouri had finally achieved what she wanted, which was to get rid of Eric. She then waited a few minutes to think about the story she was going to tell, and then called the police department. In a few minutes, a police team arrived at their home and checked the scene, certifying Eric's death right there on the spot. At first, the cause of death was given as being undetermined, but for the officers who responded to the call, Eric had had a heart attack. In front of the police, Kouri was very sad and shaken. The day after the fact, she was very surprised when a telephone conversation with the family lawyer, she discovered that she had no right to the inheritance left by Eric, because as I already mentioned, he changed the will and left everything to his sister. Even though she wasn't entitled to his inheritance, Kouri was smart and managed as best as she could. She still had saved savings, and she had stolen from her husband in previous years. And with that money, which was not little, she managed to support herself. Additionally, she had written a 41-page book entitled Are You With Me?, where the characters are based on her own children, and these characters interact with an angel who is based on Eric. The book was self-published by herself and quickly gained space and had some success in sales. This is due to the fact that the whole story behind the book was of a grieving mother who was struggling to recover from the loss of her beloved husband and struggling to raise 3 children alone. In summary, the book talks about overcoming the loss of a loved one, and according to Kouri herself, she wrote it to help her children understand that although the father was no longer physically with them, he was still in the spirit. That book was released in February 2023, and Kouri even gave interviews on TV shows telling about her sad story of how her loving husband, with whom she was in love, would have died suddenly, leaving her family very shaken. However, Eric's family members, who already suspected the cause of his death, due to him having spoken about the poisoning attempts he suffered, had communicated to the authorities about this. At the beginning of 2023, the police were already investigating the case to find out the true cause of Eric's death. With that, a toxicological examination was carried out on his body, and this examination proved that the amount of fentanyl in his organism was 5 times greater than what is advisable for an adult of his size. That amount was more than enough to cause Eric to go into cardiac arrest. After the police collected information through the testimonies of Eric's family and friends, and also evidence like this from the drug test, it was more than clear that Eric had been the victim of a crime, and the main suspect was his wife, Kouri Richins. On May 8, 2023, Kouri was arrested accused of taking Eric's life and also for possession of controlled substances. Housekeeper Carmen Marie Lauber, on the other hand, was arrested accused of buying and transporting controlled substances, but later she was released to answer for these crimes in freedom. In her first statement given to the police, Carmen told details about the days when she bought and delivered fentanyl pills to Kouri. According to her, Kouri said that the pills would be for herself, stating that she had a lot of back pain. Carmen also said that Kouri gave her more than $900 for the 2 times she went to buy the pills. After being released by the authorities to respond freely, Carmen made an agreement with them and agreed to testify against Kouri in court. In June 2023, Kouri's first court hearing took place. In that hearing, in addition to the crimes already mentioned, there was also talk about embezzlement of money that Kouri made from her husband's company, whose values exceed $100,000. Eric's sister, Kouri Richins, came to testify and said that Kouri was a manipulative woman and that from the beginning she had taken advantage of the fact that Eric had fallen in love with her to use him in order to have a good life. Also at the hearing, evidence was presented proving that Kouri had searched on her cell phone for every compromising things, such as how much fentanyl is needed for a lethal dose, what are the luxury prisons for a rich in America, certificate of death that says pending, will life insurance still pay, can the police have to force you to pass the lie detector, and how do I permanently delete information from an iPhone? In addition to the criminal lawsuit, Eric's family also filed a civil lawsuit against Kouri, so that the books she wrote stop being sold, so that the profits are taken from her. As for them, Kouri clearly profited from Eric's death as she caused it. It was also talked about regarding Kouri's behavior, which didn't coincide with a grieving wife, as shortly after Eric's passing, she took some of the money she had stolen from him and made several international trips. Kouri's defense, however, stated that there is no concrete evidence that Kouri gave Eric fentanyl, and that no pills were found on her home or possession. The defense also stated that Eric used to consume a lot of alcohol, and that he had already experimented with other illicit substances. And with such history, it was likely that Eric himself had ingested fentanyl on his own. Despite these assertions by the defense, the judge of the Court of Justice of Utah denied Kouri's request to bail, so that she could answer for the crime in freedom. Currently, Kouri Richins is incarcerated in a prison in Summit County, Utah, where she awaits her trial, which is scheduled for August 2023. Their 3 children, according to some sources, are under the care of their grandmother and paternal aunt. And as far as is known, apart from the youngest son who still doesn't understand what is happening, the other 2 are very shaken. Kouri's case has a lot of repercussions in the United States due to how it all happened. A woman who stole from her own husband, took his life, and then even wrote a book about overcoming the loss that even had a certain success, bordering on the unbelievable. I'm not sure what the laws are like in the state of Utah, but from what I've researched, if Kouri is convicted, it's likely that she'll get life in prison. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching until the end. Best wishes, and I'll see you next time.